Welcome to the Inside Silverstone podcast, a business-focused podcast covering all things tech, engineering and innovation. Hosted by me, Chris Broome, a huge tech, motorsport and gaming fan, and also the owner of Longhurst, a firm of lifestyle financial planners and independent financial advisors located in Silverstone, Northamptonshire. This is a series of unscripted and unpolished conversations with leading business owners, thought leaders and high-tech talent where we discuss their experiences within the Silverstone business and motorsport region. We will also be asking them to share their knowledge, insight and their thoughts on the future just for you. If you're looking to learn more about the Silverstone high growth region and commercially connect with like-minded peers, you've definitely come to the right place. Welcome to Inside Silverstone. Welcome to the next edition of Inside Silverstone. My name is Chris Broome and I am your host. Today I am delighted to welcome to the show Colin McGrory from Sandwell UK. Colin, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Colin, as is customary, as I always explain at the beginning of these interviews, I would love to run through a quick sort of career snapshot, if that's okay, just to help reinforce the reason why we thought you'd be a fantastic guest on the show. So is that okay if I quickly run through that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I'm going to do this a little bit differently, Colin, because normally what I do is I go onto LinkedIn or onto Google and I sort of write bullet points and put down sort of where people have worked and when and what they were doing. And yours fascinated me. And I thought for a bit of fun, what we could do, instead of me listing them all, I could get you to explain in order basically what you've done.
Okay.
From sort of school through to present day. And I would like to start with the premise of you were once in a band, you once had a recording contract, you're now at Silverstone and basically have Silverstone and Formula One in your DNA. So what was the journey from being in a band with a recording contract to being Mr. F1 locally?
Well, I left school and I went to Birmingham College of Art, but at the same time I was playing in a band and we got a recording contract. And so after the first year I threw in my art college and went off to be a musician and seek fame and fortune.
And what was the band called?
Acid.
Okay. And so what type of music? I mean, that's being stupid.
General sort of poppy type music, I suppose. Really.
Okay.
Sort of, yeah, a little bit wild, but yeah.
And how many of you in the band?
4 of us in the band.
Okay,
yeah.
all chaps.
Yeah,
guys.
all chaps. Yeah.
Okay, and what happened?
Well, basically, within a matter of weeks after getting the recording contract, the band sort of fell apart. I think probably our egos got the better of us. And, and hence the recording contract fell apart as well. So I found myself sort of with no education and no job.
So what happened next?
Well, our keyboard player was an industrial chemist at a foundry, and he said, there's a job going at our place.
Okay.
So I got a job in the laboratory there, sort of testing materials. And the company were very good, and they actually sort of sent me off to college and trained me, and I qualified as a metallurgist.
Okay. Treat me really simply. What is that? A metrologist is a specialist in what?
Metals, so the study of metals.
Okay.
Yeah. And so after that, after getting qualified, I sort of saw a job advertised for Lucas Aerospace, and I sort of knew that once I got into aerospace, I could go anywhere and do anything. So I was fortunate enough to get the job as a metallurgist with Lucas Aerospace.
Fantastic.
And had a great time for a few years there. I was a little bit frustrated with the pace of aerospace, but it taught me a great discipline and structure, which I hadn't had up till then, really. So,
and this is presumably in your early 20s?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, and at the time, there was a team called Arrows, which was a fledgling sort of F1 team, and they advertised for a sort of quality inspector. And I didn't know much about quality or inspection, but I knew how to read measuring instruments, and I sort of thought with my background in aerospace I'd be okay, and I managed to get the job. So went to work in F1 for Arrows. And
so what age was that? Ish?
The 20s, early 20s.
Early 20s, yeah. So early 20s, left school, no qualifications in a band, didn't work out, became a master in metals, as it were, and early 20s joined an F1 team.
Yeah, that was about it.
And then what happened?
Well, I worked there for a few years, and that was rather good fun, and then Ross Brawn sort of joined the team, and he took me under his wing as an R&D engineer.
Wow.
And started doing work, sort of trackside testing, ran a data logger, looking at sort of performance data. And that was sort of really great fun, I have to say. A lot of travelling. Really good fun.
Presumably to all of the race meets.
Yeah, I was mainly on the test program. So in those days, testing was a very big sort of program. So 6 countries in 6 weeks sort of thing. Usually that sort of stuff. Just get home, change, and go back out on another flight somewhere. So that was really good fun. So did that, and then went to a couple of other teams, and sort of and then. I think in '96 I went to join Jackie Stewart to set up Stewart Grand Prix.
Right. Okay. So cutting your teeth, starting at Arrows under Ross Brawn, went and worked with a couple of other teams. Yeah. And then you partnered up with Jackie Stewart, so the great Sir Jackie Stewart. Yeah. And set up Stewart Grand Prix. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So. I was fortunate in that Alan Jenkins, the technical director, had gone there from Arrows.
Right.
So he sort of did all the car design. Dave Stubbs ran all the sort of trackside on mechanics, and I did the bit in between, really. So set up all the factory and employed all the people and put the systems in. And
so what was that like? I mean, presumably you were still in your 20s then?
Yeah.
Later 20s or early 30s?
No, I was in my 40s then.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Oh, right, so you'd had a good 10, 15, 20 years stint, obviously, working in these other teams. Okay, so become a proper master and wise master, as it were, and then basically help set up Stewart Racing.
Yeah,
Stewart Grand Prix, sorry.
That's right, yeah. And... that was really good. Jackie was great to work for, very understanding, very demanding, but very understanding. And it was interesting times. And then, but I think at the same time, I wasn't sure how serious Jackie was about the future of his F1 team. So as a sort of background plan, I set up Sandwell in the background and bought a machine and a compressor and set up in my garage, sort of thing. So,
right. Okay. As a bit of a safety net, just in case it didn't work out with the racing
absolutely.
team.
Yeah.
So very sensible.
As it turns out, it was probably a smart decision. You never know. You can never see into the future. But
and so, focusing before we get on to Sandwell and obviously what you guys do, just talking about the career in F1. And the experiences back then. So presumably you've got some phenomenal memories. I mean, the time at Arrows was great because the team was less than 50 people. And wow.
I remember one time we didn't have anyone to drive the test truck to Germany, so I offered to drive the test truck. I've no idea if I was legal or not, but I actually got it to Germany.
Needed to get there.
So things like that, and. I remember sort of, playing with F1 cars when we were running active suspension, that sort of stuff. And I was sort of testing a F1 car on a rig, and I did put a wrong number into the data set and actually managed to bend an F1 car.
Wow.
It was very good round left-hand corners, but not so good round right-hand corners.
So that was an expensive mistake.
It didn't go down too well, I have to say. It was almost career limiting, that one.
Oh, my God. Okay, but a key learning point there.
Yeah, it is.
And so looking back then to how F1 teams were compared to potentially how you could envisage they are today, this may seem like a silly question, but sort of chalk and cheese, very, very different, I guess, from back then to how they may be today.
Yeah, I mean, the end product's the same. You're still trying to build something that competes on a global scale, but
sure.
But I think it's become a lot more corporate, and it probably had to. It had to become more professional. I think in the early days of certainly Arrows and those other teams, it was all about the racing, and once you got a car off to a race, then you dicked about basically, whereas now, it's continual sort of development and performance management and very much data driven as well. So
and do you think any of the fun elements gone from it? Because I'm just sensing that back then maybe
I think so, and I think a lot of the development now, partly because of the way the regulations are, is that it's very incremental development. There's no great breakthroughs anymore, and you wish someone could come up with something, but I think the formula is so regulated that it's very difficult to sort of step outside the bounds of the rules, really.
Sure. Certainly, I guess, for the safety as
yeah,
well, which has
absolutely.
clearly come on leaps and bounds. And what do you think, out of interest, to the Halo?
It's pretty ugly, isn't it? I mean, it's functional,
Sure.
but it's ugly.
Yeah, I always wonder, the drivers, clearly it's only very fractionally, but it's right in the centre. That still must be, irrespective of all the training that you have.
Yeah,
that still must be distracting.
I think so. Really, it's a hell of a blind spot, isn't it?
It is right at the most important point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and so Stewart Grand Prix then evolved into Jaguar Racing, and you were part of that evolution, and that sort of happened sort of 99 through to 2002, and then 2002 to 2003 you then left, and went and fell back to, or advanced to, I should say, Sandwell, which is something that you had in the background. So what was the reason for, if I'm allowed to ask, the sort of decision to exit being part of the racing team to then being a sort of supplier or provider of solutions to the racing teams?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd done my time in F1, really. It was very stressful. I was working very closely with Ford and doing a lot of flights to Detroit and back, and a lot of pressure on generally. So I decided it was time to move on and focus on Sandwell. And it's quite interesting, actually, being on the other side of the fence, as it were, as a supplier, as opposed to a team that's demanding service all the time. So that was a bit of a wake-up call, to be honest. Suddenly, you're at the beck and call of your customers all of a sudden. So
different type of pressure, right?
Yeah,
so I mean, running a race team, you've got the shareholders, the headline sponsors. You've got if it's Ford that own them, clearly you've got a car manufacturer there that are clearly got an objective they're trying to achieve. So I guess that there would be high pressure there, certainly to win, and to potentially make quick changes that you might not want to have to make, because actually you're on a journey. Yeah,
I think F1 is a very stressful environment. I'm sure it still is now, but a lot of people thrive on the stress, and I think I did, but it did wear a bit thin after a while.
Sure. So certainly family come along, and children, and
exactly,
other more important things than perhaps just work.
Yeah, exactly.
And so Sandwell. So basically, Sandwell is a local organisation. Clearly, you're based in sort of Toaster/Silverstone. Yeah. What do you guys do? So what do you specialise in?
So we're a surface engineering company. So
okay, what's that? Really simple. So to take it back to grassroots, what's surface engineering?
So we're generally modifying the surface of a component to make it perform better in some way.
Okay.
So we don't make anything. We only work on other people's parts.
Okay.
And we have processes like shot peening, which is firing very small steel balls, often 0.5 mm diameter, at the surface of a component. And that imparts compressive stress into the component. And the result of that is that the part will then be able to take more load, or it will increase the fatigue life of the part.
So. Right.
And then the other side of the business is coatings, where we've sort of got some very specialised techniques, where we do a lot on high-performance hybrid vehicles. So we're doing non-conductive coatings for hybrid systems, and that's growing quite rapidly, and that's quite a big market for us now as well. So between that and the shot peening and a few other sort of decorative finishes that we do, that sort of sums us up, really.
And your typical customer or client is what? Who are they? What do they look like?
Pretty much every F1 team and their supply chain.
Right.
Work a lot on the sort of supercar type level vehicles, but also medical, oil and gas, aerospace parts. So quite a broad sort of spectrum now. At one time we were just F1, but it's a little bit vulnerable.
So just picking one of those things out of there. So medical. So what's that sprang?
Well, we work on prosthetic parts.
Do you really?
So we work on things like a prosthetic foot. And we shot peen a prosthetic prosthetic foot in order to increase the life of it, because people still want to be active. They still want to be running around and jumping on their prosthetic feet and running in the sea and all the rest of it. So we developed a process that increases the performance of that part. So.
And so in relation to developing processes, how do you do that? Presumably you guys have got tools and machinery in-house. Are those things that you sort of bespoke build? Do you rely on other people locally to help construct those?
We tend to, with shop peening, I design all of our machines now. So we got from simple 2-axis shop peening machines up to 8-axis robotic machines. So quite complex machines, and we've developed a lot of the software for those as well. So it's pretty important really to be able to process parts the way you want to do them, and the only way is to build your own machines.
Sure.
And you actually understand the machine a lot more then, and every time you build one you learn, so the next one is better.
Yes, of course.
So very complex machines.
Like a race car.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Funny that. And presumably securing accreditations and certain standards enhance what you guys offer. So I've seen on the website that you guys have got, as an example, an ISO accreditation. So what is that, to explain to those listening? What is it? What does it mean, and what's the importance of it?
Yeah, I mean, we've got AS 9100, which is an aerospace standard, which means that your procedures are documented and recorded and repeatable. So it means that you can work to aerospace standards, whether it's an F1 car or an aircraft. And it's very important, and it's a great discipline for the whole company really, because it's not only about the systems, it's about how clean you are, how safe you are, and generally how the whole company performs, and the sort of the quality management system, and how you look forward and review your own sort of capabilities and performance as well. So
fine. And so clearly, from a practicing what we preach, and we're a safe bet, and we're a reputable organisation, it clearly helps with that.
Yeah.
I also saw that you've got some form of EDF nuclear supplier accreditation. What's that? That interests me. So what treat me simple. What is that?
Yeah. Well, again, I think EDF approached us and asked us if we'd work on some of their turbine systems. So it took basically a couple of years for them to be confident enough to approve us, if you like, from testing various parts, and then sort of coming and auditing us, and eventually they approved us, and now we work on their sort of turbine systems for nuclear power, basically.
So you guys are pretty broad. I mean, you're looking after motorsport, automotive, the future of autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Prosthetics, energy, EDF.
I think it's what makes business fun. I think you can't just sort of sit there and do the same thing every day. It makes life pretty dull. So.
Yeah. And then to add into the fun, you've also brought your children into the business.
Yeah,
so I've seen on the website your son and daughter, so Benjamin and your daughter, are part of the company.
Yeah, Sarah as well. Yeah, they're both in the company now. So
did they have a choice?
They did have a choice, and it's.
That's good that they came in. They followed pops into the business.
Yeah, I mean, my son's very much a clone of me. So he did an automotive engineering degree, worked at the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre in Sheffield. So did sort of metrology there and a few other projects.
Literally chip off the old block.
He is very much so. So he now works with me on research projects, and we've got some nice bits of equipment now for sort of measuring things like residual stress. There's only 4 of these systems in the country, and we've got one of them. So it's really good to be able to sort of shot peen apart and then be able to measure the amount of residual stress that you've imparted into that component. And we can now do that. So it's a great sort of tool to have in-house.
And what does your daughter do?
So my daughter is a customer account manager. So she will basically answer the phone when you ring up, mainly. and she works with my ex-wife, and she's jointly they sort of quite a good team. Actually.
Yeah.
So,
make sure that the ball keeps moving up the pitch, as it were, or the race car gets to the end of the line. So they're doing all the important stuff behind the scenes.
They're doing all the sort of customer interaction, really, and all the deadlines.
And so presumably that they may be the legacy plan for yourself. That there may come a point where Colin thinks, I've had enough.
They are. I mean, I was hoping that neither of them would come into the business and I'll be able to cash it in at some stage, but there's no chance of that. So
okay. So you're going to need to find another way to fund your retirement.
Yeah, exactly. I think just keep working.
So that you're non-dependent on the business sales. Good. And presumably, you've been in and around Silverstone for basically your entire career. And you've seen what is now Silverstone Park sort of come out of the ground, as it were, and evolve. And presumably the local businesses here and those that serve the region are clearly critical for you. Presumably you've got not only customers, clearly, because of the race teams, but also other organisations, but also suppliers, presumably.
Absolutely, yeah, we have. I mean, we use local machine shops within this area.
Yeah.
So, we need jigs, toolings, fixtures, new machines to build, and we get all of that done locally, really. And there is a great supply chain here, really,
And what about the Silverstone Technology Cluster? Because that's clearly a new entity. So Sandwell, my business, Longhurst, is a member firm. There clearly, I think there's about 100 of us at the moment. What's been your experience so far of things like that?
I wasn't sure when it kicked off how it would go, really. We're members of the MIA, the Motorsport Industry Association. That's a very strong organisation. And I thought that the STC would sort of be a little bit on the back foot because of that, but I'm really surprised at the support and following it's got, and really good members as well. So, and I think with the special interest groups as well that they have, the CFT, digital manufacturing. I think all of that is actually sort of gaining momentum now, and it's really sort of accelerating away. I think it's great.
I totally agree. Yeah, the STC is 2 years in now. You've got Pim, who is the CEO, and so Pim, and Pim introduced you to me actually in a pub in Toaster just before Christmas, I think, from memory. And if you consider they're in their infancy still, I would say, there are 100 members plus at the moment. Of which I think sort of 15 are professional services, so lots of lawyers, lots of accountants, and a few others. Clearly, one firm of financial planners, which is us. But the vast majority, positively, are all engineering, technical firms, who are in some capacity creating the futures that we're all going to be either living in or driving or being driven in or moved around in, and it's fascinating.
And a lot of those companies are partnering together now on joint projects as well, which is really good.
More to come, hopefully.
Yeah, no, I think it's very good.
Well, we've kind of whizzed through all the questions that I had. We're now 22 minutes in, so I think what we can do, we'll ask a couple more. I'll ask a couple more, and then if anything else springs to mind, we can talk about it. But I think we've covered off career to date, which started off in a band with a recording contract. 2 decades plus in motorsport, F1. Clearly, it's in your DNA. It's now in your son's DNA. Sandwell is clearly growing and booming. Niching and specialising in, obviously, surface engineering, but not just in motorsport, but across multi-disciplines, which is great. In-house manufacturing of your equipment, which is clearly, as you said, the best way to do it. Certainly, if you've got local people who can help you sort of manufacture that, as you've said. You've already mentioned, I always ask a question about embarrassing mistakes. You've already mentioned one, which I picked up on earlier, which is where you basically bent an F1 car in half, which is a bit of a corking story, and clearly an invaluable lesson. Do you have anything else in the locker? Is there anything else that's happened? Certainly, potentially in sort of motorsport background, maybe anybody that was impressive or an idol or anything like that, which we could...
Yeah, I mean, I sort of... when I was at Jaguar Racing, Ford brought Bobby Rahal in to run the team. And, Bobby was a very important guy and a great icon, really. So
what's Bobby? So those that don't know Bobby's background, do you know
sort of big American racer, winner of Indy.
Okay, Indy
really
500.
Sort of very successful.
Iconic driver.
Running his own teams and all the rest of it.
Okay, so he's a big cheese.
Big cheese, yeah.
Okay, so what happened?
And his first day at Jaguar, I got the job of taking him to lunch to explain to him about the team and who did what and how it ran and all that sort of stuff. But he got in the car and I totally froze. I was so in awe of this guy that I had no conversation whatsoever.
Right.
And we drove up to this restaurant which had a big sort of grass frontage, and all I could think of to say was, "Oh, look, they've mowed the grass. Doesn't it look really tidy?" And I think he looked at me sideways and didn't quite understand where I was coming from.
Tumbleweed moment.
Yeah, I think so.
But presumably the lunch went well, and he was
lunch
impressed.
Went great, and we went on to have many more lunches and got on really well with him.
I often say to never meet your idols, and I think sometimes with that, or people that you look up to, clearly if you're in awe and you respect someone, it happens, right?
It's very difficult, very difficult.
But at least you can laugh about it. And I'm sure secretly he probably got it as well, right? I'm sure somebody of that sort of stature, similar to the Jackie Stewart type situation. You meet someone like that, and it's like,
absolutely.
What do I say?
Yeah, exactly. And you've actually got so much to say.
Exactly.
That
so many questions you've probably got to ask him. And That's a great story. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. We know that we have students listening to the show now, which is great, and that was always part of my objective when I decided to launch the show. The genesis of which, there's no podcast in the region. Just to explain again, there's no podcast in the region. I listened to a lot of podcasts, and it was an idea of thinking, well, we can put together some content marketing, some content where we can promote other businesses in the region, where people can listen to this whenever they want.
Yeah.
What we could also do is help connect businesses and business owners with the future stars of tomorrow, i.e. students. We've obviously got the Silverstone UTC. Whose episode actually went live today, the day of this recording, so that's something I'll forward to. But we've also got Kingsthorpe College, there's Buckinghamshire School, there's also a private school locally, so we know we've got students listening to this. And so one of my final questions is always, if you could take yourself back to sort of their age, so back to pre-being in a band, okay? So a little bit wet behind the ear, as it were, a little bit green, but, your world and a life in front of you. What one bit of advice would you give yourself?
I think I always wanted to be an expert. At one time I thought I was going to be an expert guitarist, but that didn't happen. But I'd always got this thing that I wanted to be an expert. I wanted to be the person that people came to. And I didn't know in what. And it's not till you go along through life and you find that little niche. And once you find it, you have to grab it with both hands. And actually, regardless of whatever else is going on in your life or anyone else's life, just go for it. So, what I would say is that if you have a glimmer of something that you really want to do, then do it 150%, because nobody else will do it for you.
Boom. There it is. I have literally nothing else to say to that. That's some very sage advice. You're absolutely right. Identify something that you're passionate about. Yeah. And just go for it.
Absolutely.
Colin, that is 27 minutes. I think I'm going to draw it to a close if that's okay. Is there anything that I haven't covered off that whilst I've got you on air you want to sort of talk about or mention?
There's a few things that we play with. I mean, we do research work, so we've been doing quite a lot of research the last few years on nanostructures. So with shot peening, actually sort of applying the technique to produce sort of sub 50 nanometer sort of grain structure on the surface of materials, which actually gives you huge benefits in terms of fatigue and life of a material. But it's quite a tight operating window to be able to process the material. So we spent the last 2 or 3 years trying to develop techniques to actually sort of produce nanostructure surface materials. And we've presented one paper which we presented last year in Montreal at the World Conference, which a certain amount of interest there.
World Conference of what?
Shot peening conference. So that was quite good, and sort of ties in a little bit with my other sort of part-time job, which is I I'm on the SAE Standards Committee for shop peening as well. So twice a year I end up going to the States and sitting down with Boeing and Lockheed and GE and
Amazing.
Honeywell, and sort of, we write the standards for shop peening, which apply sort of.
Which follows on from your piece of advice to anyone younger listening to this, which is identify something that you're potentially passionate about or that you want to niche at and become a master at it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You clearly epitomise that, and from a family perspective, you've got your son and daughter following through, who basically doing exactly the same. So. Yeah. Colin, thank you so much for coming on the show. Pim, if you're listening to this, which I know you will be, thank you for introducing us in the pub. We must organise a get-together again, all of us, as a thank you on me for coming on. So, Colin, thank you for your time.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Cheers. The Inside Silverstone podcast is produced by the team at Longhurst for the benefit of those with a passion for all things tech, engineering and innovation. For more information, please visit longhurst.co.uk/Inside Silverstone, whilst also remembering to give us a 5 out of 5 star rating on iTunes. Please note that neither Chris Broome or Longhurst work for Silverstone Park, Silverstone Circuit or Silverstone Technology Cluster.